Today's episode of Northern Lights is presented by North Star Law Group, a trusted partner for small businesses in Minnesota's legal cannabis industry. Whether you've already applied for a license or just getting started, attorney Jen Riza and her team can help you build a compliant business, identify and navigate risks, put together an application, and keep you informed about the ever-changing Minnesota cannabis landscape. Are you ready to add North Star to your team? Visit northstarlaw.com/cannabis and let North Star Law Group guide you through confidently opening your doors. Again, that's northstarlaw.com/cannabis. Taylor Swift said, "All my friends smell like weed and babies, and I want babies to smell like weed." Welcome to Northern Lights Podcast.
What song is that?
I don't know. It's one of the lyrics off for a new album that was getting traction all over the internet, and I was like, wow, all of my friends do smell either like weed or like new babies.
Or like new babies.
I hate it.
You just like the weed.
I just like the weed. Yeah, I'm anti-baby.
Which kind of goes back to your original point. Be a lot cooler.
It would be a lot cooler if pregnant mom smoked weed.
Welcome back to Northern
Welcome
Lights
back.
Podcast.
Another episode of Northern Lights.
I got to get back to electioneering.
Perfect. We'll make
Let's
it fast.
Fucking go.
And we're back. Another episode of Northern Lights. I'm your host, Tanner, joined today by John and Jordan. Hey, guys.
Happy Friday before the election.
Happy Friday before the election. Happy post-Halloween.
Ooh, yeah. You do anything? You guys do anything for Halloween?
So I took a cooking class of fall flavors. We learned how to make pumpkin soup.
Hell
Not
yeah.
necessarily Halloween related, but very fall.
That
and
is-
so delicious.
It's seasonal. so
Yeah.
it's- yeah.
And it was Thai soup. Just a flavor profile that I've not really
God.
perfected in my own kitchen that now I feel like I have at least a starting point.
That's awesome.
What about you guys? How was your Halloween?
I turned my lights off and watched
There you go.
things in the basement so nobody could see us.
Was there candy outside?
Nope.
You're the people. We're
We're the people. We're the problem. The thing is like I think I described this on a previous episode. Is that our road is a very natural divider line
Oh, yeah.
of neighborhoods. It's a
Yeah.
busy road, and so I reckon not a lot of parents would love their kids walking along our road. So we're just like, it's kind of a blessing in disguise because we can just go watch more Golden Bachelorette
There we go.
and enjoy our evening.
There was a Onion headline. It was like, family huddles up in the living room with lights off on Halloween.
It's so true.
That's me.
Yeah.
What were you up to on Halloween?
We carved pumpkins. I tried making like a mushroom cloud.
Okay,
And
cool.
it looked more like a Basquiat cricket mask.
Okay.
Like it came out looking spooky. So yeah.
I love it. I'm here
It
for
was
that.
first time carving pumpkins and Lord knows how long. So
Here's my Halloween take. The kids that go up to the house with the bowl of candy and take the whole bowl of candy are the same people that in the circle spark the whole bowl.
Oh, yeah.
And just hit the whole thing and
Yeah.
hand it to you already, Chaz.
and it's just like the whole thing's just
Yeah. Jordan looks like he agrees with me.
I could hear my heart rate.
so you know who you are.
Yeah.
Well, I just, before we jump to today's news, which we do have a lot to talk about, I had one piece of news that's not cannabis related, but is Halloween related here in Minnesota. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there were reports that possible human remains were found in a river in northern Minnesota. Like, I know it sounds like, wow, that's terrible. The police went and checked it out. It was a Halloween skeleton that they found. Apparently, it was highly detailed. But the police said, we take all these calls very seriously, and we wanted to make sure that we took this one seriously as well. So if you see any skeletons in the river, maybe ask yourself, man, it's October 31st. Could it maybe be a plastic skeleton?
A full
Can't be.
no.
No.
No, it's a full human.
It's a full human. But just a skeleton.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get to some cannabis news. I saw that on the way in and was like, wow, human remains found in river turned out to be plastic skeleton. Dope.
What do you know?
Yeah. So we've got a lot to talk about today. As you mentioned, it is the election. And if you guys are listening on the day that this comes out, it's the election today. Please go and vote.
Go vote.
If you are listening to this after today, don't go and vote. You won't be successful because the election is over. You guys might know more about the results of that than we do. In fact, if you're listening to this on Wednesday, you definitely do. But what we want to talk about today is why this election is so important for cannabis. Now, we know that this election is going to take quite a while to really tabulate and count out. Yeah. On the national side, we know it takes a long time to figure out that electoral college. And on the state side, there's a number of districts that are really close, that it's just going to take time for that to keep working out.
And we changed a lot of rules
since
the last presidential election, so that's going to just cause delays naturally. Yeah,
100%.
Things different.
So we've got people voting this election day. You guys have heard it talked about in this podcast before, but we're voting for the control of that Minnesota House of Representatives. There's also an election for a special Minnesota Senate seat that's going to potentially determine the control of the Minnesota Senate as well. So the legislature, even though we're not all voting on senators, both are sort of up in the air with this election. Yeah. We also are voting on our federal House of Representatives, our federal Senate, and did you guys know we're voting for president this year? The White House is also part of this election.
What's that?
Yeah, I know, right? So there's a lot that will really go into impact how cannabis looks. And it's important to note, I want to give a shout out to the judicial races, even though people, I think, sleep on those. Yeah, I know. We saw that the judiciary can have a huge impact on how cannabis is implemented, how policies work. It was illegal to pull people over and then search their car because of the smell of cannabis because of our courts before it was the legislature. Yep. So having people in office, even though I know not every judge is like responding to polls on how do you feel about cannabis legalization? What would you do?
But still, especially in a state like Minnesota, get your early ballot, look them up, figure it out, find your sample ballot, look these people up because, everyone on that ballot matters in the end.
Yeah. So let's talk about the things that can change. Minnesota House, Minnesota Senate, we already touched on. We need DFL to remain in control of those because that is how we get pro-cannabis legislation. Yes. We can't have things rolled back. We fought so hard for this. Having, even before our industry sets up, having things potentially thrown into the muck of that would just be terrible.
And we know it's not every Republican who's anti-cannabis in the chamber, but we've been down there for years. We know they are few and far between, and the party that brought us legalization is the one that's going to continue to be strongest on it.
How often do you think about Paul Gazelka? I'm just kidding.
I think every time I see a State Farm commercial, my brain goes to Paul Gazelka.
Man, shout out to the former Speaker of the Minnesota House who was just so anti-cannabis. Former is my favorite word to use in that sentence. So it's really important that people go and vote. Be watching for that. Obviously, today is election day, the day that this comes out. So we don't need to tell you to go and vote, but be looking at how is this going to impact. And if we have Kamala Harris get sent to the White House, we have Governor Tim Walz become Vice President Tim Walz. We will then have Governor Peggy Flanagan in charge of picking the new director of the Office of Cannabis Management.
Wow. That is actually... Yeah, that's going to be exciting because I do think everything is in a sort of stasis until Election Day. So hopefully you guys are getting news that we've all been waiting for weeks now.
Yeah, because we've talked about it. Walz, if he does get elected, has until Inauguration Day to resign his governorship. Yeah. So we'll still have this transitional time. But, I mean...
That's January 20th?
Right around there, yeah. But I mean, we're at a year since Aaron Dupree was appointed and then resigned. Yep. I think the odds that Governor Walz gets someone in before January is slim to none. Maybe?
Dude, I'll take that bet.
All right. There we go.
I take that.
All right, here we go. We're gonna move the mic so we can shake hands. John, if someone gets appointed before Governor Walz resigns and becomes vice president, or if he loses the election until January 20th, until someone new
comes back home,
I will get you the fattest of dabs that I can possibly find, or some other qualifying equivalent.
I'll get you the dankest of buds.
There we go. You guys heard it here first, documented live on Northern Lights Podcast.
And I'll tell you why I feel that is
for sure.
They are going to be doing the entire lottery in December, the one that's open for everybody. And I don't think they want to open up the lottery to essentially most of America, because it is not has nothing to do with like being from Minnesota.
For sure.
Without a director.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's like, I think by that point, Charlene Briner will either commit to it, which I think is a low probability, or they have vetted candidates. It's not like they've been doing the work. It's just like waiting and waiting. I hope they're just waiting until licenses are out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard rumors that perhaps there are people in leadership positions in OCM today that maybe could be candidates for that director role. I've heard, Jess's name, the social
Jess
equity
Jackson,
director, floated as perhaps maybe someone who's been around, seen what cannabis looks like.
She'd get my vote.
All right.
Like she, as I understand it right now, is the only person at OCM who has worked in the cannabis industry as a compliance officer. So it's like,
wow.
That's
important.
Or we could put a cop.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, Jordan. What do you?
Yeah.
Doubt.
I heard the chief of police in Minneapolis might be needing a new job, so we could. No. Just kidding. Yeah, no. I think, having someone in that director role who is favorable towards cannabis. I know you joke, but that's so important.
It's kind of the whole game.
Yeah.
Like, especially like we know what the industry is, and it's confusing. Like. We're going to have this rescheduling, like someone's going to have to figure all this out for the industry, for the consumers, and for the legislators. And we can't just have someone who's like, oh, I know policy, but I don't know lick about cannabis in there. Yeah.
Yeah, that title interim can only get you so far. And Charlene's been doing great, but I think we need to figure out who's going to run this for the next, 5-10 years, you'd hope. All right. Well, so we'll say it one more time. So fucking vote.
Go.
If you haven't yet, go do it. If you missed election day, where were you? I mean, we've been talking about this for so long.
One thing we neglected is
for sure.
If Kamala and Walz win, Peggy Flanagan becomes governor, and then our man Bobby Joe Champion goes from president of the Senate to lieutenant governor. So I'm not sure. Would we need 2 special elections?
So, that's such a great question.
After the initial election, like, would we have one in January? Like that, I'm still.
I believe you would only need one for the Senate seat of Bobby Joe Champion.
Yeah, but that seat would then.
Don't tell me election season goes into next year.
They're gonna have to do it in like early 2025 because I know session starts in February. Yeah. So we have that month, and that's what I've been thinking about too. Because it's like the Republicans could even it up or lose one, and then that special election could happen. But what's his seat in North Minneapolis or St. Paul?
Yeah, I think unlikely to switch to becoming Republican.
Won't come from that seat,
but still having an
empty seat. If it's empty, that's where the problem.
That will be really big because we should say here in Minnesota, the president of the Senate does not get to be the deciding vote. Unlike that federal Senate, vice president gets to do it. Here in Minnesota, if we have 33-33, we're stuck.
We're stuck. Nothing's happening. Yeah. These are the things I think about too. And I cry.
This is why we smoke weed. All right, well, let's move on. Obviously, election's important. You guys know just more than we do. And I really hope that by the time we have our next episode, when we're recording this time next week, maybe we'll have a better picture on what that legislature will look like in the next session. Hopefully we'll know who future president is. A lot of stuff that I hope we know a week from today.
How you know the Senate's like a foregone conclusion.
It's foregone. Nah, it's an election. Anything can happen.
I actually saw the GOP candidate driving his own truck with his face on it.
Wow. I want a truck with my face on it. No, instead, here's what I do want. I want good city regulation around cannabis. That's one of those things that just gets me so excited. Some people think, Tanner, watching government work is just so fun, but only at the state level. At the local level, it's just so boring. And what I say is it's even more fun. I tuned into the Minneapolis City Council meeting yesterday where they were debating cannabis zoning, and they had decided to make it Cat Day in the city. So the city chamber was filled with cats. and the city council
like
was
pictures
like,
cats?
no, like actual live feline cats.
Like people's cats from home?
I imagine. I sure hope
my
so.
My cats would hate that.
And so then you
like,
have this cat brought in public just to like be named Cat Day. And so I would say to people that say city government is boring, no.
Boring's not the right word.
No. Boring's not the right word, because if you watch that cat segment, you then got to watch nearly 3 more hours of city government meetings. Just what everyone wants to do on a fun Thursday morning.
Come for the cats, stay for
stay for the bureaucracy. Yeah. The meeting was extended slightly because protesters did shut down the meeting. It was.
Why would protesters be protesting a cannabis vote?
Oh well, it's
or
not
Cat Day. What could they possibly be?
What could they possibly be protesting in Minneapolis? Man, a lot. And the debate around how police should operate in Minneapolis. What is the duty of a police officer? Do they actually have to help people when they call for help? Are questions that are being debated.
Their neighbor shoots them.
When their neighbor shoots. A lot of things. I think the city of Minneapolis is trying to figure out. Yeah. And cannabis policy checked off that list because on Thursday they finally passed zoning regulations 12-1 to approve the ordinance that will figure out where businesses can operate and what the heck they can do in the city of Minneapolis. Now, we have talked about this a lot in past episodes, so if you're a viewer of the show, a regular listener, you already know. If you are not, go check that out. Earlier this season, you can go and download those episodes. You can stream on YouTube because the Minneapolis rules are pretty big, pretty expansive. So we're not going to jump into all of them today, but I do want to highlight one pretty big change that came out of the meeting yesterday. Friends of ours, Bob and Aaron over at CannaJoy. Shout out to CannaJoy. Have talked about how the barrier between businesses, the minimum that there be at least 500 feet between cannabis dispensaries, is, maybe good in idea, but what would logically happen is if CannaJoy says, hey, we want to become a dispensary, but someone had already moved in closer to them, including social equity applicants that just get the first stab at it. Mm-hmm. Suddenly now they can't open. No. Well, thankfully, yesterday, that provision was removed. So the distance between dispensaries no longer required in Minneapolis. There's no requirement that tobacco shops be 300 feet away from each other.
I lived by a Speedway across the street from a Holiday.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure both of them were selling tobacco products without a problem. Right. And now it's looking like in Minneapolis, that won't be a problem as well. You still have to be 300 feet away from schools, but in terms of being away from dispensaries, you can be right next to them.
Nothing like solving the problems you created. Do you know who the holdout? What her reasoning was? Since you listened in.
Yeah, her reasoning is that the amendment was introduced at the last hour, literally sent to them the day before, and the fact that they had multiple planning commissions look at this, agree. Yeah, that's probably something we should have. The other reason is that in Minneapolis, there actually is a pretty big distance that new liquor stores need to be away from other liquor stores. St. Paul is similar, where there are sort of like territories carved up.
And liquor stores, you cannot go to the liquor store, use a bunch of the product, and like walk around coherently around a park.
I absolutely agree with you. I 100% agree. And that is why many of the city council members looked at that and said, no, that's not a why are we worried about two dispensaries being next to each other?
Over half the city bikes everywhere.
Well, and it's especially important when they've limited retail to essentially just like 10% of the city for cannabis businesses. Setting a minimum requirement like this would drastically reduce.
Bring it down maybe 5 times.
Yeah. So glad to see them move forward. Minneapolis and St. Paul have now finalized their language, so we know what those rules are for the 2 biggest cities.
It's crazy.
Other cities are still working away at that, figuring out, are we going to have municipal shops? What are our zoning regulations going to look like? Lots of questions still to figure out, but at least in Minneapolis and St. Paul, we've got that done.
And we knew they needed to do it first.
Yeah.
Like we got to have our capital in our biggest city.
Yeah, we could potentially have people be getting licenses for pre-approval, but licenses in a couple months here, a couple weeks here. Yeah, I don't know.
That's like we really...
Yeah, hopefully soon that they're going to go to a city and say, I want to open here.
The 31st was the deadline that all applicants got for their deficiencies.
Yep.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
So... We're gonna at least know who's not in soon.
And that's what will be interesting is maybe by the time this episode comes out, like it's Friday. I don't think they're gonna do anything in the next hour of business.
Tuesday, 8 p.m. They'll send out the email.
Totally possible. So people do need to be on the lookout for there could be rapid changes in this. You know, it's the hurry up and wait. We're in that waiting part, but that hurry up hasn't stopped. That will come very quick here.
Yep.
So keep watching that. Keep watching it. But at least in Minneapolis and St. Paul, you don't have to keep watching that ordinance process.
Yeah, and you can just go find where those properties are with the new rules and make a plan.
Yeah, I'm ready for a very entrepreneurial. That's the word. Real estate agent to come up with a guide of here are all of the cannabis-friendly real estate options in Minneapolis because we now know where they are.
Yeah. Chris Lindahl, if you're watching.
Yeah, Chris Lindahl, if you're watching, we'd love to have you on the podcast. We'll stretch our arms.
Have you guys seen the Black Ops?
Oh
posters?
My God.
That made me like almost crash my car laughing. I was like,
amazing.
Regional marketing, dude. That's amazing.
So good. Well, and like the first to really like spoof that I've seen at least.
Like in a broader media. Yes. Like I've seen a lot of Minnesota people try to explain it to other people like who are in Minnesota people in media.
But not Call
and it's
of
just
Duty.
Like weird. Yeah, but like Call of Duty doing it. I was like, good for you, Chris Lindahl.
Yeah.
I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're really.
So here's the question. You guys might know the answer to this. Is Call of Duty an Activision game? Is that that's correct? Activision is partially based in Minnesota. So it would make sense that they have
one of them
such specific branding.
Yeah.
I used to work with a guy who is a game tester in Minnesota.
Same.
That must be such a I mean, I said to him, it must be such a cool job. And he went, no.
Play a lot of shitty games.
In my mind, it must be a cool job.
Well, the grass is always greener.
Yeah. I imagine it's like playing the games when they don't work and you know they're bad.
Well, I think it's just a lot of like reporting bugs.
Yeah.
Finding bugs and then just making just
so it's like, hey, we need you just like run around this fucking map for like 3 hours. And if you don't move for 5 seconds, your supervisor will know. And it's like,
well, speaking of running in circles for hours, how's that for a transition?
There we go.
We got some news from the department, or the DEA, Jesus Christ, the department, the Drug Enforcement Agency. Woo! Thank you. Oh my God, we're cutting all of that. Speaking of running around in circles, the Drug Enforcement Agency, the good old DEA. Man, we got some news from them that rescheduling process that we knew was going to take long, that we knew probably wasn't going to get done by the year.
No, not before an election.
Not going to get done before 2025. So this is sort of breaking news from when we're recording today. Just yesterday, we learned that the chief administrative law judge, the person in charge of this process, put out an order basically saying that the information that they have is just insufficient. They need more data from people. They need more experts to weigh in. And they're going to schedule time for people to give that hearing likely in January or February, setting this process back months. I remember people saying hopefully this would happen by the election. Maybe we would have this. It could be that fun October surprise rescheduling. Now here we are, hours before the election, and looking like it's not going to happen anytime soon. Are you guys surprised that this is taking even longer than I think our longest expectations were?
No, but I also don't think it's like the worst.
And it's not bad.
All. Yeah.
It's slow, but it's not.
Like the industry as I know it was completely unprepared to be rescheduled. Like they didn't have the knowledge, like all like the freaking pharmacy rules.
Yep.
And like there's so much more bullshit in Schedule 1 than there is when it's illegal and unregulated.
Yeah.
So
oh yeah.
I'm glad they're taking time to like really flesh out what this means for the industry, because it's not about the consumer, I'll tell you that much. They're trying to find how can we do this and not fuck up a bunch of businesses. I wouldn't be shocked if cannabis businesses lobbied for this delay.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't.
I totally hear what you're saying, and I think like it makes perfect sense that 7 months ago when we got word that it's officially recommended that they're going to reschedule it, I think I remember sitting in the studio with you, having Jen in, and asking like, what does this actually mean? Like, we've been selling cannabis under this structure for hemp for a while. There's adult use states, but now that we've got this rescheduling, like, what does that really impact? And people talked about like research or funding, but like the day-to-day impacts, I think we still don't.
We still don't
totally know.
Like, what's this going to do in Colorado? Who knows?
Yeah. And what I do like is now we're getting an opportunity for Minnesota to set up their market without it having to be the first trial under, man, what does this look like under Schedule 3?
What is this? Yeah.
Oh. Well, talking about the DEA, the department, the whatever you want to call it, that drug enforcement agency, makes me feel like I gotta eat some edibles.
Oh yeah.
Should we?
What sort?
Oh, well, we're gonna talk about that right when we get back. Ready to kick off your home grow? We've got the perfect hookup for you. MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. They've got everything from fast flowering strains to unique hybrids, all ready for growing in Minnesota. And guess what? Our listeners get an exclusive deal. Use the code NL10 for a 10% discount on your entire order. Don't miss out and get started with the best seeds. Start your growth strong with MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. Remember, NL10 for 10% off at MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. Grab your seeds today. So it's another month, which means it's time for another Seed of the Month with Natural Harvest. Casey, we're super happy to have you here back in the studio.
Hey, Tanner. Thanks for having me back. Great to be here.
Yeah, so it's November, which means it's time for another Seed of the Month. Now, just before we jump into what the actual Seed of the Month is, tell us a little bit about who Natural Harvest is. We were stoked to have you on the show just a couple weeks back. For people who maybe missed that, who is Natural Harvest?
Thanks. Yeah, Natural Harvest, we're a local seed bank here based in Minnesota. We ship countrywide, but our focus is on the Minnesota market.
Very cool. And you're a cultivator yourself, right? You're a home grower here in Minnesota?
I am. Many years ago when I was in college, grew quite a bit, took a backseat for many years, and then certainly, as the legalization came, it was kind of counting down the days until I was able to again.
I love that. Yeah, a study that came out from the state of Minnesota said that almost a quarter of cannabis consumers are growing at home in Minnesota, which I think is incredible. Shout out to home growers across the state.
No doubt. That's awesome. I mean, we go to events all over the place and we see tons of people, and it's amazing how many people are interested. And I think really going back, right, indoor growing has kind of always been the focus here in Minnesota. We have such limited time that, it's always been there. It's just, now it's out in the open.
Exactly. Now we're able to talk about it. Now you're able to have subscription services delivering genetics. I think that's pretty cool. So on that point, we talked about this a little bit on the show when you were on, but tell us about this subscription plan you have and how people can get genetics to their front door.
Sure. Yeah, we have 3 different plans. The Harvest Hero is our kind of top end box. It's $60 a month plus shipping. Budding Grower, it's $35 a month, and then our introductory plan, the Seedling Starter, is $15 a month.
Awesome. Very cool. So no matter where you're looking to enter in, you can get seeds delivered right to your door, ready to start growing.
Yeah, and it gives you a really good opportunity, whether you're new and not really sure where to go, right? There's thousands of options out there. So it's kind of a no-brainer, here's what you get, versus, even seasoned growers, right? It's something new and different and fun to try, and you don't have to, put a lot of effort into it. Let us do the hard part.
I love that. So let's get to it. It's November. What is the seed of the month that we got going into this month?
Yeah, super excited about this one. This month is Slurricane.
Okay.
So it's a cross between Do-Si-Do and Purple Punch.
Awesome. 2 classic cultivars. Purple Punch is a really fun one. I had a friend who grew a cross that had some of that in the lineage and definitely came through. You could see that purple. It was really a treat.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm really excited to see how it turns out for people. I haven't grown any of it myself, but I did recently do Do-Si-Do outside over the summer that's drying right now.
Okay.
So super excited about that.
How's it smelling? I know you said it's drying now, but sort of the early initial thoughts of it?
Oh, it smells great. Yeah, I'm really excited. So.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I'm excited for people to get that box in the mail, to get those genetics into soil, into cocoa, however people are growing, and just get that growing across Minnesota. So if people are looking to sign up for that, maybe they aren't yet signed up for your subscription plan, where can they go to get themselves up for that?
Sure. MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com.
Awesome. And MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com, that's what you said?
MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com.
I love that. Awesome. Go check that out today. You can get signed up, get those genetics right to your front door, and start growing. I'm really looking forward to that one. I've never grown slurricane ever before in my tent, and this feels like a good excuse to maybe give it a go.
Try something new.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Casey, thank you so much for coming in the studio today. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to have you back next month to see what seeds people can be getting delivered.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much. We'll be right back.
I grew up in a family of teachers. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
My mom retired a couple years ago, but 4 aunts and my grandfather, and then the other side's
cool.
electricians.
Okay, absolutely.
So I have a cousin who's a nurse, and I'm in banking. We're like the weirdos.
Gotcha.
We show up to a family
gray
event,
sheep
and
of
they're
the
like, "What
family.
do you, banker, weirdo?"
Well, I think for a long time, people didn't really want to talk about cannabis use in education, and obviously we don't want kids using cannabis. But I think educators are definite users of cannabis, and now that it's been open, it's been cool. Like at our, I work for a company called Love is an Ingredient. We have a couple different retail stores, and we have a discount for any educators that come in, and it's very much like if any other teachers knew about this, like everyone would be here, and it's.
Yeah.
I think, yay cannabis industry.
Yeah, I came home last night with a 12-pack of THC drinks.
Mm-hmm.
My mom's like, "Oh, good, you got drinks." And I was like, well, yeah. And she's like, "Can I have one?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely, but it's not alcohol."
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "What?" I was like, "It's THC." I was like, "Remember, I quit drinking." She's like, "Oh, yeah." She's like, "I'll have one." I'm going to give her another one tonight. She talked a hell of a lot less.
I love that. I love that so much.
Ma, you want a drink?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Here, I'll pour you one. That's so funny.
Yeah, my mom is for what she did, she's a high type A and
Okay.
everything and moving, going, da-da-da. So it's like perfect.
Very cool.
You're perfect right now, Mom.
See, and that's what I love is that I think cannabis THC products, like so many of that stuff was reserved to just like the people that were willing to break the law for a long time. And now that your standard adult is able to go into a store and legally purchase these products, I think we're finding so many people that 5 years ago wouldn't have been interested in it, but now that it's legal, regulated, safe, available for purchase, like it's so much of a different game.
Yeah, it was even like when we had kids, before kids, we were smokers, not consistently, but a good bit. And I was like, oh, we're doing the adoption process. And it's like, especially we're in North Carolina. So it's like, yeah, we'll just remove that from our life.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, it's just, you stop at the store and you stop at Top 10 Liquor. That's where I go. It's by my house.
Yeah. And
that's where you can get Yoni stuff. So
yeah, exactly. Well, and the fact that it's at so many, like, it's not just reserved. Like we're here at the Dabbler Depot, which is cool. It's cool to have a cannabis forward shop, but we're in the state of Minnesota where cannabis is available at so many places that are not just cannabis forward or traditionally cannabis friendly places, which is why actually I'm really excited to chat with you today, because I think alcohol is one industry that has previously not really touched cannabis. And in similar ways, I think banking has been one that has been tricky to figure out how does cannabis interact with this, with hemp regulations, with adult use, federal cannabis regulations, with state regulations. It's a thicket, I think.
that's the appropriate way to say that.
Yeah.
It's, even still today, you have the banks that want to dabble, but they just don't know. And that's kind of the way the space has been since medical came and the different verticals, right? The hemp bill and then the low potency. And you want to get in, you see, you have current clients that are moving into it, but you don't know. Yeah. So you kind of have to do it, or you do it to a place where you can't fully help your customer. And there's a lot of great banks in the state that have gone the other way, and I'm proud to be part of that. But there's banks that are picking up and saying, all right, we have our directions, and there's things like the certifications with the PBC or whoever that allow you to learn more before you dive in. Because before, like when we got in 10 years ago, just talking to our board members that they were behind it, but they didn't know what they didn't know.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, they were like, we want to do this. Okay, figure it out. And now you don't have to, you can know it before you get into it, which is just a huge change. There's so many, I mean, my certifications come from the PBC conference, but you know, there's 20 different places to go that can get a staff or a board or a CEO, whoever on board ahead of time, because they know what's right. There's people to talk to. I probably talked to 6 different banks about the good, the bad, like what's hard, what's not hard, what do you got to worry about, which I was saying to somebody the other day, when I got into banking 20 years ago, if I would have told you I spent 75% of my time on cannabis, it would have been a career change, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And now that's my job.
Let's get into that. I'm excited to have you here today. For people that are maybe listening on the audio version, tell me a little, like, who are you? Why are you here in our studio today? Brandon, I'm happy to have you here, but what brought you into the studio?
So Brandon Padget, I work for Union Bank and Trust. We're in Minneapolis, and give you the dime story about who we are, because it ties to this space a lot. We were founded in 1976 by the 24 building trade unions in Minneapolis, right? So those are the people that pave your roads, build your buildings, make sure your air conditioning is working at work.
Yeah, absolutely.
From Boilermakers to glazers to put the glass in the window, right? They founded it because they wanted a place where their money was respected and revered. Maybe is definitely the wrong word, but you're a labor union, you put your money into a big bank, a Fortune 500 bank. Well, where does their money go when it comes to campaign time, right? It goes to both sides.
Yeah, exactly.
One side kind of leans to one way or the other, right? So we're founded that way, and Hubert Humphrey cut the ribbon on the bank back in the day.
Very
so
cool.
Hubert Humphrey was, and those type of people were part of the founding of the bank. So come forward in 2014 with medical marijuana, our board was in. They wanted to do it, and we were lucky enough to start with medical.
Okay. Which put you guys at like the really early days of that.
Very early stage.
I think there are a few financial institutions or just institutions generally that have been in the cannabis game since 2014.
Yeah.
What were those early days like? You mentioned the board was behind the idea of it, but
100%.
What was it like being in cannabis finances in 2014?
Unknown.
Okay.
I wasn't with Union at the time. So I went back and talked to our board members. We still have 7, if I remember right, that were part of that decision. And their recollection of it was crazy space. It's something that people knew about, right? Like, it's instead of ibuprofen or alcohol, I can chill out after I paved a road or I pulled a bunch of wire or whatever. So it wasn't that people weren't using it. So they got into it with trepidation, like anybody would have, because it was a brand new world and had to figure it out. And the team back then did a great job of, there's the FinCEN guidelines and the Cole memo and just understanding all of that and working with, we're a state regulated bank. So you work with the FDIC versus the OCC. That probably doesn't make a lot of sense to people, but and so getting guidance.
But like the boilerplate or the bread and butter of it means that from a regulation standpoint, you're much more tied to those state regulations than you are federally, correct?
Yeah.
So that's what makes it so that you guys are able to play a little bit more in the cannabis space. Yeah,
you don't have to worry about, you have to basically, like with the Cole memo or the FinCEN guidelines, show that you're following those and show that you're doing due diligence. Your customer, that's the biggest one. KYC is a huge, if you're in banking, KYC, know your customer. So you've seen where they're at, you've seen their product, you understand where it came from, what they're doing, just understanding the person.
Okay.
And that's any banking. If you're going to bank somebody, you have to understand them, but especially now because they're not so much now, but 10 years ago, there was risk of, would that money be seized? Or maybe not risk of it, but the fear of it. So the bank did all its due diligence and, through our medical client, got really good and worked with the FDIC and built a program. And I would just shout out Debbie Foss. Nobody here is going to know her, but she's been with Union Bank and Trust 40 years now last month.
Wow.
And she's our VP of operations. And she just dug in, and we have recently gone with the third-party fintech to support our cannabis industry clients that make sure they're, they don't have any variances, make sure their license are up to date. They don't have any bad news out there, and it does all that.
Totally.
And that's something we brought on, and we don't pass on because it takes 6 people to do that work.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool product that goes out to them, make sure they're safe. I forgot where I was going.
No, you're so good. No, so tell us a little bit more about, so that's the history going back to 2014. Coming forward to today a little bit, when did you come to Union Bank, and what is it that you specifically do there?
So I came to Union Bank 20 months ago.
Okay.
New title, or new, I guess it's 6 months old. I'm the Chief Deposit Officer. So at the end of the day, what does that look like? Anything that touches your cash would roll through me, right? So people at the teller line, the bankers that open your accounts, treasury management. So what treasury management is your ACHs, your online banking. It's how your money moves.
Yeah, for sure.
So that rolls through me. So that
the thing that keeps it all flowing. Yeah.
So that comes obviously then with the cannabis industry. All those right now, it's really just money movement, and we've been lucky enough that our board is all in on it. And Nate, who is our our lending officer, is learning every day. And we have a few cannabis loans out there, and we're going to continue to try to move that space forward. But so what I do every day, I was promoted to Chief Deposit Officer 6 months ago with the idea of how do we drive this space forward. Our board, after the medical came, they saw members being able to have easy access, good access to good product, whether it was the THC or maybe just CBD, or
yeah, for sure.
They could kick an opioid, they could bend over, pick up a grandkid, they could sleep. I don't know if you guys have ever done manual labor. Unfortunately, I've spent some summers doing that, and even in my 20s, it hurts.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you're in your 50s, I think about somebody like my dad, whose kidneys started to go just from ibuprofen. He's not even a big drinker, and he's one of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people that are in that type of pain. So the board saw those effects.
Yeah,
went deeper and deeper, and so their mission to us and as a bank is, how do we support this industry better? And so how do I do that? It's meeting people like you, right? Yeah. Spoke at CannaCon, at the Canna Connect event. How do you share, educate, connect people? I feel like half my job is either being connected to somebody or connecting somebody just to drive this space.
But that's so cool. And it's really cool hearing that your organization doesn't just, want to support cannabis business, but really sees the effect that cannabis can have and sees that as sort of part of a mission of spreading that. That's
absolutely.
I think that makes you unique, especially and I don't mean to say this in like a negative tone, but I think in the financial industry, I think cannabis is not as looked upon as favorably, with rightful justification when it comes to federal regulation. Right. But it's cool to see a financial institution here in Minnesota supporting cannabis businesses and supporting just people that are looking to increase access to cannabis. How does that impact the work that you guys do? You mentioned that you obviously have support from the people that run your organization, but does that, do you think, give you better understanding of what people are actually going through day to day with their business?
It does. I think so in the two aspects, right? You look at our board, it's either retired business managers or active business managers that are supporting the men and women that are crushing themselves every day to make sure we have better lives. So you can't go to those guys and say, oof, that's going to be a lot of work.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
That response, you're not going to get a good response there, right? So it's definitely a roll your sleeve up, and there's so many things we're learning, and I mean, ever changing. You guys get it. From 6 months ago to today, what the OCM has said to now, it's constant learning and listening, and trying to understand businesses. And I think the thing about, to be a good banker, sometimes you have to tell somebody no, right? And understanding that, like, you're not ready. You haven't gathered, you have an idea.
Yeah.
And you have $30,000 that you've been working your butt off to save. What's the real plan, though?
Yeah.
So pushing back to them and saying, hey, slow down. We've seen, whether it be case study, whether it be talking to other bankers in exhausted states, the Colorados, Washingtons, Californias, those states that have done it for a while.
For sure.
It's slow down.
Okay.
Let it settle a little bit. You've worked so hard for this money. I know you want to be in the space, but you don't seem ready. And that's not just in cannabis. That could be somebody trying to start a construction company or anything. It's
for sure. Yeah, I think cannabis is unique in that every single person that wants to start that business has to go through that lottery system. And yeah, I agree with you. After chatting with people, I think are all 1,800 of those applicants ready to start a business?
No.
Probably not. No. So let's talk a little bit about that the adult use market that's coming on board. For someone who maybe does win that lottery, they suddenly now have a license to open a micro business. But maybe they don't know a ton about what a financial institution can offer them. Can you tell us a little bit about what Union Bank and Trust could do for a new cannabis business?
I think especially through Denise, that's our VP of Treasury. She's 20 plus years in banking and helped business owners along the way. She understands, right? The social equity aspect is huge to her, right? She's a widow of a veteran, right? A minority in the space. So she's seen how those things happen. She's a lady. So she's seen all these different things that affected her worldview. And on top of all that, she's just a phenomenal banker. And so she's dug in, whether it's going to the Minority Cannabis Association's events or the women's, just understanding all those things. But her bank background allows her to give sound advice. Like, who have you talked to? Have you talked to one of the cannabis-friendly lawyers, and do you have a good business plan? Have you talked to a cannabis-friendly CPA? Do you understand your finances? Do you have somebody in real estate that's going to get you a space that's not canna tax, that's just it's going to burn up all your cash? Because having a cool space is awesome, but if all your money goes back, just like it's like being house poor, right?
Oh yeah,
it's the same idea. If it's all going to go back into your rent, you never get to reinvest.
Totally. It's the how much will it cost me to start my business? We'll take whatever number you have in mind and 1.5x it, because that's what it's going to probably end up taking. And I think a lot of people aren't ready for that reality.
Another thing too is we've done, like I said before, it's meeting people and connecting people. So we have the partners because of the legality nationwide. There's a lot of people, like our core processor won't move cannabis money, right? So, but you go to our website, there's our cannabis banking tab. It says ACH. It says all those things. We don't directly do those, but we've talked to the people that we believe in the space are here for the same reason, to move the space forward.
Okay, for sure.
Not just make money. They're going to make money. You don't get into business to not make money.
Absolutely.
But trying to bring partners in that can fill where we're federally locked down, that can move that money, that will move that money and do it for the right reasons. So, I probably talked to, I don't even know how many people I talked to in those spaces of the money movement. And we've come down to 3 that we think we like and have sat with and know. And same thing with our risk platform. You talk to the owner of that platform. He grew up on a farm in Texas. His dad switched over to hemp farming.
Okay.
And so his mission is, how do we make this easier for people like that?
Yeah, I love that.
Is he going to make money? Yep. But he's doing it for the right reason.
Well, and there's, what's the phrase? A rising tide lifts all ships. Like, I think this is an industry where people are going to make money. And the trick is finding partners that are in it with that same vision as you.
Right.
Going in and saying, hey, yeah, I need someone to process. I need someone to grow. I need someone to do all of these things so that I can open my retail store.
Yes.
And we can all succeed when we all do that together. That's really, really cool. Yeah. So take me through a little bit more about, like, what does it look like to start working with a bank? We had Jen Riza from North Star on not that long ago. And one of the things that she said that sticks with me is, people think of getting like a lawyer on retainer as like this big complex thing.
Right.
And really it's just sort of signing a paper that says you're my client and giving me a couple $100 and now we can start working.
Yeah.
What does it actually look like? You've got a cannabis business. You think, man, I probably need a bank account. I probably need a way to process funds. I'm going to be selling stuff. How am I going to do that? What is that first step of actually working with Union Bank and Trust?
It's one, just reaching out, whether it's via our website or LinkedIn, quite a bit through LinkedIn, but reaching out and then, understanding your business, right? What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? Do you have the right partners? And we'll talk through that and we can introduce people too, but it's really as simple as an application.
Okay, for
and
sure.
The license, right?
Yeah. That's the helpful part. Yeah.
So a lot of it right now is over the last month, people that have hope for that license, but you get it going. You get it linked to your website, whatever they need to do between Denise, myself, or the guys on the floor, they can direct them to the right places. But it's maybe even simpler than Jen's. There's no couple $100 to give.
Okay. All right. Totally.
You fill it out. We get you signed on, get you on your online banking, get you anything you need, a card, you want a processor, things like that. We'll make those introductions. And then $100 deposit, and that basically has to stay overnight and move on. But it's as simple as any bit. You've opened a checking account before.
Yeah, totally. Going to the bank, filling out a form.
The extra step would be, are you licensed with the state? And I don't mean the cannabis license. I mean, just did you file your LLC or your corporation or whatever with the state? And we can help with those things too. We have, again, myself, the guys on the floor, or Denise can direct you to the right page. You need an EIN. If you're going to be an LLC or a corporation, you can't use your social, right?
Yeah.
So we can get you to those right places too. We can do all that setup.
I think that's going to be so important, especially for the first round of social equity applicants. We'll see who ends up winning that lottery, but it could be a lot of people who have maybe never opened a business before. This is sort of that first bit at the market. And I think, registering your business sounds like, well, of course you have to do that. But I think for a lot of people, maybe that first step isn't as clear. I appreciate you mentioning that, and that you guys are there to help sort of guide people through that process. So tell me a little bit more about, you've been in the industry, you've been chatting with people for the past 20 months. For people that are looking at the cannabis space, and it surprises me, but people still are looking at getting into this, what kind of advice would you have for people? Obviously, reach out, get connected, but what else should people be doing now to get ready for tomorrow?
Well, you even kind of said it, right? You can't outrun your checkbook. It's as simple as that. If you think it's going to cost you $10,000, it can cost you $30,000. Be aware of that. But have your partners in place, whether that's your distributor, if you're retail, or that's your money movement, which we can help with, right? We have the partners that'll help with that. It's definitely your checking account. Who's going to help you? Just over 20 years of banking, when you see companies fail, is they outrun their checkbook. They don't pay attention to spending. They don't even know what they're spending.
Yeah.
They bring in the wrong partner. And sadly, it's typically a best friend. It's a family member that doesn't have the work ethic that they do. It's not their money. So that's kind of where some of the spending goes to. So you see a lot of businesses fail in that first 3 years because they've spent too much and they don't have the right partners.
Yeah. And I think that's such
buddy, right? It's my buddy does this. So I'm okay.
And that's such a good point, especially in this in-between time. I think there were people that back when the application window was open, filed with a friend thinking, hey, this is going to be a great business. And now as we're getting closer to licensure and that might have to become a real business, people are realizing, maybe the stuff on my cap table, I don't actually really think that that's how I want to run my business.
We've seen it both ways at the bank, right? We've seen places go up, this label, and then those friends realize, oh, wait, we have different visions. Now this place is this label, or even the inverse. We've seen two bigger players come together and form something else because it's like-minded. They've seen each other's work. So I think just from the finance side, there's so much more planning than people think.
Yeah.
An idea is not a business. It just, when it comes to your money, that a good idea is a good idea. And that's kind of where it ends.
Yep.
There's a lot of planning, a lot of connection. And the other thing I would say, and I think you guys do it well, most of the people you have on this podcast, if you're trying to get into this space, the CRB space, whether it's hemp or it's THC or it's low potency, you got to meet all those people. Pretty much everybody that's been on your podcast, right?
Yeah.
You should know them in some sense, some way. And I was going through it. It's like, oh shoot, yeah, we know.
Hey,
that's awesome.
We appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's been fun. We started this podcast right before legalization went into effect, and it's been cool documenting. Obviously we still don't have a bunch of stores open, but we've been able to see a little bit of that rollout of advancement on medical, on people being able to home grow, people being able to have and trade with others. And we appreciate having people on that are trying to, like yourself, move the industry forward and just figure out what is Minnesota cannabis going to look like. So
we know in 3 years it's going to be different than it looks like next year.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Even 3 months from now.
Yeah, definitely 3 months.
So I'm going to be that bad guy that asks you the question that I think everyone is asking that doesn't really have a perfect answer. But there's going to be a lot of people that are going to get a license and say, now I'm going to start my business. How the heck am I going to pay for that? What kind of funding options are available for people in the cannabis space? Are there loans available? Just like what does that look like?
So there's a lot of private equity, venture capital out there, right? And
okay.
That's going to be where you're going to be able to go without any hard assets. We can't live in that space, and until repeal or safe banking, we can't tap into USDA funds. We can't tap into SBA funds.
For sure.
So typically when you would see a social equity type of applicant, that's where we would help them we have lots of SBA, the Small Business Administration. Sorry, I'm speaking in bank lingo.
No, you're good.
That's where you would have them go, right? There's going to be a 75% guarantee for the bank. And then that, if you borrow $100,000 and you go up, you're going to owe the Fed or the bank back 25, right? So it's a huge umbrella or whatever, parachute. Is what I'm looking for. Without repeal or safe banking, they're just in the federal, still being Schedule 1 or even Schedule 3, probably not going to get USDA or SBA money. So right now we have several, it's a loose term, a handful of cannabis loans on the books, whether it's real estate or it's equipment. We just decided, and we're looking at how do we do, and we're trying to underrun right now. We're going to do 25% of product, right? So you're actually what you have on your shelf, whether it's drinks or it's flour or it's your glassworks or whatever.
Yeah, the hard consumer goods.
Yeah, right. So we're looking at 25% of those assets. So just to make it easy, again, you have $100,000 in drinks. We're looking at loaning $25,000 against that, right? So
okay, for sure.
If your business fails, pretty easy to, if they have a distributor already, the distributor wants to move that, right? It's in a retail shop. The retail shop wants to move that, right? So is there going to be a loss? So that's kind of our protection.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right now, but how can we get people working capital? And that's the thought process. And I just give it back to Nate and then Taylor Rollins, who's a commercial lender for us, who have done that legwork and try to figure that out with the board's approval. The board looked at it and feels comfortable but then it's going to come back to underwriting, right? It's you and your partner. Do you have maybe 3 partners? Do you guys have good credit? Have you paid back loans? Do you have other assets out there? And something we'll have to add into it is, if it's seized because of federal, we'll have to add a little note there, because other states, people argued, well, it was federally illegal and you gave me the money, so I don't owe you the money back. So little additives to the loan docs that would be a little different. Absolutely. Legally, it would be different, but in a sense, we don't care if it's federally seized, pay us our money type of thing. But yeah, so we're trying to figure out, how do we help people? Do you have trucks? Do you have equipment? Do you have, you bought your home 15 years ago. Can we use some equity to give you upfront? Some sort of asset is the easiest way to go to get that funding. And then it's going to be your history. It's going to be, we can't look at your cannabis banking history, right? For these new people, but did you own a business before? What did that look like? With commercial lending, it's a little different than if you walk in to buy a car, they see credit score and pay. Yeah. Cool. You can get this car. It's a little different in commercial lending. They want to look at all aspects. What are total assets? What are the hard assets? What's your experience? What it do? And generally, they talk about character of owners. That's one of the 5 C's of credit. Do you think this is generally a good person with good ideas that wants to do well, right? What's the character? Are they just here because it's a quick buck, and you kind of see the way they treat people or treat the situation, or, you're looking at helping good people move a good industry forward. So there's all kinds of things out there. From, you could do a term loan, 5 years, right? That's, everybody understands a term loan. Totally. If you do commercial real estate, typically that's not what people are used to. So you want to buy a building for your business. That's going to be a 25-year amortization, but it's a 5-year note. So at the end of that 5 years, all that money is due. So on the consumer side, that looks like a balloon, right? Yeah. It's just a renewal. So what typically you look at the last 5 years, look at their taxes, look at the money they made, how do they reinvest, how they done, look at the things like what's the news check? Have they done things the right way? So it's more of like a checkpoint, sort of, as we guide through the process, making sure that before we extend another 5 years, things are good under the hood. And then it gives you the ability for us either to adjust a rate up or down. In the last 5 years, it's been more advantageous to banks, right? Rates are rising. Well, now we see rates dropping. So even if you get in today and you're not necessarily, I'm not happy with that commercial real estate rate. Well, 5 years, can't say, but it looks like things are coming back down. That line of credit I lost my train of thought for the word I'm looking for, on your inventory. Yeah. Right. So we can get you some of that working capital, because if you're putting it in an inventory, how are you paying payroll? How are you buying or paying the AC bill or whatever? What are those ancillary things you don't think of? All the things. I got my product now. Oh, shoot. I got to keep the lights on. So that those working lines of credit that we're talking about, where you can try to loan against 25% of that inventory is huge.
Yeah. Well, and that could be game changing for people if they're able to get some hard assets, able to get some inventory, and then realize that they're a little bit short. Having opportunities to go and say, hey, I've put all this money in. I have all of this value. I can show that. Is there funding available for me? And hearing that the answer is actually yes is, I mean, I think way better than it was 10 years ago in our industry.
Well, I mean, we're just talking to people around. It's like,
sorry,
go ahead.
Can we just put that mic closer or more between you and Tanner? Yeah, talking through it.
Perfect. Yeah, there we go.
Got
Wonderful.
it. Perfect.
Carry on, sorry.
What was I talking about?
Oh, yeah. No, you're good. So let's see. We were talking about the. I saw your finger. No, you're good. You're so good. No, you're so good. I'm really good at tracing back my thoughts sometimes. We were talking about, So for people who are able to secure assets, people that are able to get inventory, hearing that there's some funding available that could sort of be an additional stopgap, like we were saying earlier, it's always going to cost more than you expect to open your business.
Yes.
Hearing that there's funding options available, I think is so different than a decade ago when people were first starting to get into the medical industry here in Minnesota.
That's right. You tripped my brain now too. So you talk to these people, especially at these shows, right? Whether it's Lucky Leaf or CannaCon or wherever, and they're like, "Oh, our bank just said no," and we've made a point to say we want to say maybe,
okay,
right? Because there's when it comes to commercial underwriting, so many people, and I'm going to say it one more time. So many people are used to consumer financing. I have money. I have a good credit score.
So
those are 2 out of
so many factors
25 factors that are going to go into the commercial loan, right? So maybe is a huge step for our industry. Even talking to other bankers or talking to a private equity guy Wednesday from San Diego who was like, "Oh, you would do this amount of money on equipment." Well, yeah, if they qualify, right? And he's like, "Oh, they've been in business in California forever and ever." Well, send the deal. We'll absolutely look at it. And he's like, "Oh, my bank partners don't say that. They just say, no, it's cannabis related." At some point, I don't know when that point is. I don't think anybody in the room knows or listening knows. That's got to go away because in our philosophy, and I think everybody we associate with in this business space in Minnesota is operators or growers or whoever, they're a business. And if you're going to choose to bank them, why are they a different business than your bowling alleys, your grocery stores, your whatever, your mom and pop barbers, whoever?
Yeah.
Why we say we want to do business with them. Why would we treat them different?
Absolutely. Why do we expect them to walk around with duffel bags of cash when we wouldn't expect that of the laundromat or the restaurant or any other business?
And the thing about, being Schedule 1 that sucks, for lack of a better word, is you don't have that USDA funding, that SBA funding where you can help somebody you have no experience? All right, what are your projections? We'll figure something out. And hopefully soon with that. But yeah, it's a giant maybe for us.
Okay.
And I know that's a huge step forward for the banking industry.
Yeah.
And there's a few out there, I won't name them, that are good like that too.
No, totally. But so walk me through a little bit more, because I love hearing that the option for the maybe is available for people. When people are coming into your bank, they've got a business, they're looking to get, maybe some additional assets or some funding to help them with that. What are some of the things that sets apart like the businesses that you're interested in talking to more, learning more about, versus the businesses that's sort of a thanks for coming in, but isn't right for us?
I think the biggest difference from a bank's perspective, from a people perspective, everybody wants to do it. Awesome. Like follow your dream. That's amazing. From the bank's perspective are you planful? Right?
Okay,
you have a business plan. Simple as that. ChatGPT will write it for you.
Okay. Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. If you're not using AI in your life right now, get on board.
Super fair. Yeah. Don't come in with a one sentence summary of your vision. Please have something more than that.
Have something. So the business plan is huge. Reading through that and understanding, do they really know what they're getting into? Passion, right? Who is it? I think it's one of the fast food. It might be Chick-fil-A. You can't own a Chick-fil-A franchise if you have another job.
Interesting. Okay, for sure.
You have to operate that restaurant. It might maybe not be Chick-fil-A. I don't know, but
But they want that buy-in.
You have to be all in. So if you say, oh, well, yeah, I'm an excavator Monday through Friday, but I have a lot of money and I'm going to get into cannabis. My advice is probably going to be, are you sure?
Yeah.
Because it's going to take, and it's not even just cannabis, any small business. If you're not all in, right, literally, and if you look at our vision and values, one of our values is all in, and that speaks to the labor space, speaks to the people we serve. But if you're not all into whatever you're doing, how are you going to succeed? How are you going to do it to the best of your ability and to the best of your employees, people that may lend you money, people that may get you inventory? Like, if you own a retail space and you're not all in, and I make drinks, and my stuff's not moving from your shelf because you're not there, you're not regulating, it's not getting moved, you're not doing the right things. Why do I want to? Sure. I'm not going to waste my inventory on you. I'm going to move to somebody who's there every time I show up, who's passionate, who's got a plan,
who's actually going to move our industry forward. Right. Who's going to keep it chugging along.
So it's like that. Are they all in? Do they have a plan? And just because you don't have a perfect plan, still come talk to us. We have trying to do math. Sorry. Over 100 years commercial banking experience and the people that touch cannabis for us. Just because your business plan's not right doesn't mean we can't help you get it right. Doesn't mean we can't give you advice or somebody else to talk to, or maybe you were talking to some lawyer we've never heard of. You know, you said Jen's name already, so I'll say it. Like, Jen's phenomenal in the space. Have you talked to Jen? Like, I've never even seen this name you got here. What have they done for you?
For sure.
And people are like, oh, well, I signed up and then they charged me X dollars, and you try to keep a straight face, but you're going, oh, whoa, those are the dollars for your application?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and even on the other side, you have people that, hey, I have a great lawyer. They've been really helpful with contracts and arrangements, but now suddenly I'm asking them about an application and they have no idea what I'm talking about. And you don't want to be the person that's having to educate the experts. And it's cool sort of bringing it back to this, that when you go to Union Bank and Trust, it's not like I'm going to have to sit down and say, have you ever heard of 280E before? No. But it's more, you're going to tell me, hey, here are the things that you need to be aware of as a business owner coming into this space that you might not have thought of before you came here.
Yeah, and I think 280, a lot of the people you talk to, they're going to because 280 is not as effective in the hemp, right? But the people that are going into the licensing for adult use rec.
Oh, yeah.
And do you know 280E? Because they've been business owners. Have you heard of 280E? Well, no. What is that? Well, you can't reinvest. You got to pay your taxes. You can't get it back. Reinvest it. I mean, obviously, this is one part of it. But and they go, oh, well, how do I grow it? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that functional tax rate is going to be.
It's harder than you think. Yeah, you've been a very successful widget shop owner. I don't know. And yeah, you've always been able to say, write off, when really all that money is going back into the business and making the business bigger, making the business better, moving the technology for whatever it is. Well, you don't have that ability if you're in adult use rec THC, right? So helping them understand that. And we've talked to a couple of people who are like, oh, I have to rethink it. And we haven't heard from them again.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. The traditional business forecasting that I think works for a lot of other small businesses, there are definitely similarities and rhymes with cannabis, but also some things that are take that traditional mindset and sort of flip it.
And to keep with what you asked, it's also that, what's your projections? So finding the cannabis friendly CPA, again, it's money up front people don't think about, but you need projections. If you're going to want funding from us and you've never been in cannabis, because most haven't, right? Or even if you have, some of the people that are in the low potency or in the hemp space are coming forward now because they're going to try to get rec licenses, and helping them understand, what does it look like? What is it going to look like? Because that, with projections, we can talk about how we can lend, right? Talk about the right partners you would need, or who's coming, who's going, essentially. But yeah, there's so many little nuances, one, to banking, but then two, to this space that have to kind of converge to make it work. And I think, we've said it a few times, it goes back to really into the space though. Are you passionate about moving it? Not just you, because you can't be a selfish operator in this market. Are there some markets now, the MSOs are doing all this stuff in other states and convulging, and they're being invested in, they're selling stock, they're publicly traded and things like that now. But in our space, the more, not that we already have MSOs in the state, obviously, but some really good ones, some awesome people, but we're still ground up.
Very much
We're not I can't even think of the right word. We're new.
Yeah, we're still, I think, like pre-bubble is how I've been describing it to people. And I think bubble so often is seen as like a negative thing that's going to then blow up and pop. And there definitely will be that bubble to the market.
Absolutely.
But I think we're right now at like that. We haven't even been filled with air. We're just so close. And
that, to your point, though, it's a lot of things people don't want to hear. There's not a state that hasn't had a burst, and some are big, some are poof. Yep. But there's going to be a burst, and there's going to be licenses that go for sale and consolidated licenses, and being ready for that too. You know, as an operator, your price per pound is going to come down. The longer we've been in, there's just everything's going to. Yeah,
there were licenses sold in Vegas for hundreds of thousands of dollars that today I don't think you could even flip one for $1,000. It's like, you know, as the industry matures and expands, the breakpoints of it just keep shifting.
Yeah, I was talking to another banker in D.C. They're from a New Jersey bank, and they had a guy come in and wanted to get a $250,000 loan for a license. They're like, no, dude. Yeah. We don't need to underwrite that. We're good.
Yeah, exactly. So transitioning a little bit, I'd love to hear what are some of the things that you're excited for in this oncoming industry? As a cannabis consumer yourself, like I'm excited to walk into stores, be able to have choices. What are some of the things that you hope to be able to choose from?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing I'm excited for is the stigma to go away.
For sure.
You know, I have a very successful relative cousin, uber successful, who's been a user, a smoker forever. And that's always been like, he's kind of had to hide that. And why? This dude owns a home. He's got 2 cars. Wife's a nurse. Like why is that a thing that's a back burner thing? So one, I'm excited for that. There's so many people, and we've already learned this in Minnesota. Just, you know, I'll use my wife. Don't listen, Morgan. She has 2 drinks. She drinks those drinks. I compare it to like you were drinking a beer earlier.
For sure. Oh yeah.
Two Hearted. Love Two Hearted. Right. It's one of the few I would go to. If you don't have that or a couple other beers, I'm like, good. Give me a whiskey. My wife is not abnormal. She's got her drinks now, right?
Yeah.
She goes, I know what to get her. They come home, you know, she doesn't want to get super high anymore. We got 2 little kids and she just wants to chill.
Totally.
So for that too, to make it normalized, take the stigma out, be able to just go grab a drink, grab flour, grab a gummy, whatever, wherever. And, you know, we were down at Earl Giles for the Canna Club. And,
yeah, for sure. Wednesday nights, something fun to check out. Yeah,
it was fun. But people are, you know, they're enjoying just like you would beers.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for that to be the normalcy of it. The options are going to be great, but just not the stigma. You know, it's been insane. And then, you know, to get extra deep as we remove some of these people from prison or from jail, or take some of these fines back, or make it equitable.
Yeah.
You know, just growing up, you know, I grew up in a very mixed family, and seeing how it's not socially equitable. You know, some people get pulled over with weed and that's a ticket. Some people get pulled over with weed and that's jail.
Absolutely.
And I think we all figured out, it just depends on how you look or maybe what you're driving.
100%.
And so I'm really excited about that. But yeah, that's the most exciting thing, to kill the stigma.
I think that's super fair. When we first started up this podcast, as I mentioned, days before legalization, if I technically got caught as a licensed teacher in Minnesota consuming cannabis, I'd lose my teaching license. It's cool now being at a part in Minnesota today where, as an educator, I can say I'm a cannabis consumer and not have that be something that carries with it the legal stigma.
Right.
I'm ready for that social stigma, as you might were mentioning, to also slowly begin to trickle away and have this be just another thing that people do in their free time, like painting or like drinking alcohol or like anything. It can be a hobby and something that, when done responsibly, isn't the end of the world.
Or when you go up north irresponsibly, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's no place to go.
Exactly. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for coming in today. It was so great chatting with you, hearing a little bit more about Union Bank and Trust, the history that you guys have, and some of the ways that you can help people as they move forward, both in the hemp space, but also in the oncoming adult use space.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm just happy to come in. It's very cool. And like I said, I've been listening and seeing, and just, it feels good as a banker, as a professional to say, all right, we do know those people, so we're on the right track. It's a cool thing, and we're so excited to help and just drive it forward, especially, our board literally said, go grow the industry. And that's exciting.
Yeah, we think that's, from the outside perspective, also very, very exciting. So we're happy to have you here. For people that want to get in touch with you or maybe contact Union Bank and Trust, where would you send them?
www.ubtmn.com is our webpage. Okay. We just launched 2 weeks ago our cannabis-related banking. It's third tab over. That's got that. There's some phone numbers on there too. But for me, it's 612-437-5207 or bpadget@ubtmn.com.
Perfect. So we'll put both the web address, your phone number, and the email address in the show notes so people can check those out, get in touch, and get ready for everything that's coming next.
Yeah, exciting times.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again. We'll be right back. Perfect. Beauty. Awesome. Anything else that you wanted to touch on that we didn't get a chance to cover? I mean, I think
we got it all. Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Yeah. Truly, thank you so much
I think the only thing, and it's out there already, but there's no Canada tax for us. But if they go to our website, they'll see that.
Oh, I think we can talk about that if you have another 30 seconds. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Still rolling.
Sweet. All right.
Oh.
Yeah. No, he keeps the cameras always going. Gotcha. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes that's not good. Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Is there a blooper reel I get to see?
Yeah. It's for the Patreon subscribers. So one thing that people in the cannabis industry, both hemp and now adult use, are becoming increasingly more, common with is the cannabis tax. You have the attorney's fee, you know what they are, and suddenly that cannabis attorney is a little bit more expensive. You're working with that accountant, suddenly having that cannabis expertise just costs you more. What does that look like in terms of banking? You guys are really proud about not having that cannabis tax. What does that mean to you guys?
So I kind of talked about it earlier, right? Whether you're a bowling alley or a bar or whatever, a trucking company, we bank you because we want to. And so we maybe easier for us because we're not new to the market. We started with one company and no Canada tax there. So as they came on, we never added that because as it came through, again, it was recommended people. It was people you want to work with, people you want to support. So the way we look at it is we want to support you. We also want to support our construction companies. We want to support our bars. We want to support all our clients.
For sure, yeah.
So if we levy $1,200 on waivable a month or 30 cents per $1,000 in cash deposit over 30,000, how do we help you move forward?
Yeah.
So our fees are the standard fees, right? It's $15 a month that can be waived. There's some earnings credits out there. If the more you deposit, the more your earnings credit is, can waive if you're doing the ACHs, if you're doing the wires, you're doing the ancillary services. Those things cost, but the more you deposit, the more you get back to waive that. I guess our vision is just, I've said it 2 or 3 times, you're a business we want to work with. Why would we put shackles on it? Why would we slow you down by making you have to come up with a rent payment to bank with us? Everybody's in it to make money. It's going to be, if you do any search historically through the exhausted markets, it's a race to the bottom anyways.
Yeah.
The bottom is relative. The bottom is just standard fees. So we just figured we'll stay with standard fees. We already had, I think before this summer and before legalization, we had like 21 entities and we weren't Canada taxing them.
Okay, for sure.
Well over double that now, and we're just not Canada taxing them either because we want them to succeed and we want people to trust in what we do, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think you did a great job of explaining it before, where I love we all succeed when we all succeed. We don't want you to be our partner and then to drag you down. Right. We want us all to rise up together, be it through connections, be it through good services. I think that's a really unique part about Union Bank and Trust that personalizes the services that you guys are providing.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. If it's $1,200 a month to bank, we can all do math, right? It's $120,000 a year.
Yeah.
Well, it's more than that. It's $144,000 a year. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money and a lot of cannabis products.
That is a lot. That's a lot. That's irresponsible use.
Yeah, exactly. That would not be personal for sure. Ever felt like running a cannabis business means running in circles just to get basic banking? Union Bank and Trust gets it. They've been helping cannabis businesses for over 10 years, solving problems like securing accounts, managing cash flow, and navigating regulations. No more jumping through hoops, no more runarounds. Just straightforward banking solutions built on trust, integrity, and performance. Check out unionbankandtrust.com today. That's unionbankandtrust.com. All right, well, and we're back. Great interview with Brandon. For the end part of our show, we've got a product to sample, and of course, we've got the high notes. Now, these gummies, I'm really excited to try because a lot of gummies that we eat are sort of that traditional, like pectin, sugar, glycerin, all that stuff. This actually includes real honey in it. So we've got a couple different flavors we're going to be trying out over the next couple of weeks. But for today, we're going to be diving into the royal honey. They're sort of classic honey gummy. Have you guys ever had honey flavored gummies before? This is a new one for me.
Yeah, I've had like the high honey, but that's as far as it's gone.
Yeah. This is naturally sweetened by Minnesota honey, right in the gummy itself.
Minnesota honey,
made by good old Superior Molecular over in White Bear Lake. So
shout out.
Wow, and they look like golden honey. Here, I'll grab one and I'm gonna pass along the bag.
To the left hand side.
Oh yeah, classic. Just like it's golden honey amber color to it.
Looks like candy.
Gets sort of that honey smell to it. I'm excited to give this a try.
I like it.
Wow. Wow, that's actually really cool.
That's really good.
So when I first threw it in my mouth, it's like, all right, you taste like a sugared gummy, just like basically every other gummy. And the more you chew it, the more that you break it apart, you actually get like real notes of honey.
Yeah, I think
like,
when you
and that aftertaste is true. Like that is honey.
That is really good flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of goes with like how gummies always taste, but instead of just like that lasting of whatever your flavoring is, it's just honey because like that is the flavor.
Well, I'm excited in future weeks to try some of their other flavored ones that combine that honey sweetness with also like blueberry, lavender, or raspberry lemonade.
Because I love lavender tea with honey. I feel like that one probably tastes amazing.
Well, you guys will have to tune into a future episode and check out John trying those. Does he think they're delicious? Does he hate them?
Does he eat the whole bag?
We'll only time will tell. Wow. Well, I like those. I'd actually really recommend this,
a lot.
Especially if you're a honey person. That's for sure. You're gonna get gummy,
or if
honey,
you just
and THC.
Haven't found a new gummy flavor in a while. Like I think this would be an awesome one to try out.
Sick of the blue raspberry? No.
Never.
I love my blue raspberry.
Blue raz.
Well, guys, it's the end of another week. It's the end of another episode. We got to talk about what we're talking about when we get high with our high notes. What are you guys thinking about today? What do you got going on? What is your high note? John, it's been a minute since you've been in the studio. Do you want to start us off this week? What are you thinking about as we...
So, since last time I've been here, the Lynx had a tragic and stolen end of their season. And the Wolves have started their season. And our God King Anthony Edwards has become the youngest player to hit 500 three-pointers.
Wow, all right.
Yeah, did it faster than Steph Curry, faster than everyone. And he's 22, I think, turned 22 this year. Just insane. Yeah, we are only going up from here.
So I hate to admit this. As a kid of like the early 2000s, well, technically 90s, but raised in the early 2000s, the Wolves weren't good. Are they good?
They are so good right now.
Wow.
We are so good. We have a defensive player of the year and 2 All-Stars. We had 2 All-Stars, and the 6th man of the year and Mike fucking Conley. So it's like and Nas Reed. Yeah, it's kind of
Nas
Shout
fucking
out to
Reed.
Nas.
I mean, he's
Reed.
6 man, but I had to say the name.
Wow.
I think I said this on a prior show. Basketball is the sport I understand the most, and this is the most enthralled by the Minnesota basketball team that I've been since I was playing, which is 15 years, 18 years ago.
All right, you know what, guys? I'm going to go to a game. You've convinced me.
Dude. Like, get some nosebleeds. Like, just get in the stadium and you'll feel it. Mm-hmm. You'll know what we're talking about.
I mean, I grew up watching Michael Jordan. Like, I am named after Michael Jordan. And so my dad made sure I knew what a world-class basketball player looked like from... I remember watching games 3, 4, 5 years old with my dad. And Anthony Edwards would put prime MJ in the ground.
Dude.
Like, I will say that publicly.
Thank you. He is not only the best athlete in the league. He is showing right now he is the most lethal 3-point shooter in the league. Wow. It doesn't make sense.
And he's a culture guy too. Like he makes the dudes around him better because he knows it looks like a D1 college player just doing 1-on-5 against 5th graders.
Yeah.
Like the way he thinks and acts in a game and just perceives the game, it's just incredible to watch the way he IQs his way through a game.
So this summer, Tanner, he made the Olympic team, and he told the rest of the team at 22 years old, I am the first option. And he didn't say like, oh, you guys fucking suck. He was like, no, I am the first option, guys. You know that. When I'm on the court, give me the ball. And
he's talking to LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. He's talking to these all-stars, multi-champions, faces of the whole sport. And he's like, look at me.
Like, you know it. I know it.
I'm in charge now.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's fun to see an athlete just be so...
And he's on our team.
He's not cocky. He's not cocky. He's
I've never
just
been able to say that before.
He's just sure of himself.
Confident. And then, okay, we're going down the Anthony Edwards rabbit hole, but he lost both his parents when he was young. And he's like, I've always had to, like, be there for myself. Like, I have my family, but I have to be there for myself. So it's just, like, big moments, you can see the excitement on his face. They're like, oh, okay. It's time for me to, like, show who I am.
See, and that's, like, my favorite part about sports.
It's amazing.
He's happy to be
the guy
that the whole weight of the state is on. Yeah. He wants those opportunities. I love it.
And as soon as he wins an NBA championship, he says he's going to play football, hopefully for the Vikes.
He said, it's like, if I lifted like you guys, I could beat all of you. He will take you on in ping pong. He will take you on in chess. The Olympics. He doesn't know how to play chess, but he's like, I'll beat you. I'll find a way to beat you.
Can we challenge him to the biggest dab rip?
Oh, yeah.
Come on, Northern Lights.
He'll show off his lungs. Yeah.
Tanner, do a full-on call-out. Anthony Edwards.
Anthony Edwards, come on Northern Lights podcast. We want to see who can rip the biggest dab. Come on down.
Good promo.
The league might not be pleased with that, but
they changed their rule. Players can smoke weed now in legal states.
There we go.
So, yeah.
Welcome, Anthony Edwards, to the podcast.
Last thing I'll say, the GM of the team dressed as Anthony Edwards for Halloween.
Ooh, okay.
His hero.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
You get dressed like your heroes, man.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
What are your high thoughts this week?
All right. Have you guys ever heard of Famous Yeti's Pizza?
No. Where is that?
All right. So it's a pizza shop that I just needed to give a shout out today. Okay. It's not actually in Minnesota. It's in Wisconsin. And I just have to tell you about the night of October 22nd at Famous Yeti's Pizza. So bear with me. This is quoted from a New York Times article that was reposted in the Star Tribune. Shout out to the authors that wrote this. On October 22nd, a man operating the shop Famous Yeti's Pizza in Stoughton, Wisconsin, about 20 miles southeast of Madison, ran out of oil while making his pizzas. So he did what anyone would do. He went to the industrial kitchen nearby, shared by multiple businesses, and took some oil that belonged to a different business. So bear with us. There was a label on the cap. It said the manufacturer's name, it said the use-by date, and it noted that it contained Delta-9 cannabis, Delta-9 THC. Now, the operator, the guy who was running the pizza shop, did not notice that label.
Oh, God.
So what he did is he took that oil. He then made about 60 pizzas with it. And then only
that's a party.
later,
Give me that pie.
they said an investigation began when the owner started experiencing unexpected physical symptoms after eating the pizza.
I'm feeling kind of groovy.
Yeah. Now, I don't mean to make light of this.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
5 people were transported to the hospital because they ate pizza, and all of a sudden we're like, holy shit, I'm fucking baked.
This is a really good pizza.
Obviously a big problem. They had to solve it. They're investigating it. But there was one element that this is why I'm bringing it in. I know, it's crazy. And it's one of those things that if this happened like 10 years ago, people would be going to jail.
Yeah.
But with a legally operating business that just like wasn't locked up as well as it should, and there's no rules for this in Wisconsin. Things are fine. So comments on the Famous Yeti's social media posts were overwhelmingly positive. Many expressed appreciations for the business's openness, and a few customers saw the news as even more reason to patronize the restaurant. So Famous Yeti's Pizza, I know you're not an intentional cannabis retailer, but if you want to come on our podcast, come on down. We'll have you on.
So you want to keep it on the menu? We'll come down.
Keep it on the menu.
We'll just make sure there's food
on the menu.
Either bring it or we'll order it.
Oh my God. And you and I both worked in the cannabis industry before. We know that those jars of oil generally are pretty strong. That's
and they
pretty
look
high
innocuous.
Dose. Yeah.
They look like any other type of
put
oil.
it all over pizza, baked that. Someone ate it so lovingly, so deliciously, and then was fucking blazed. So, shout out to Famous Yetis. Now, of course, we never want people to be dosed without their permission. This is only joking about it because nobody actually got hurt. It's weed. It's whatever. But make sure to be responsible with
satire part of the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. This is the part that the views are not approved by the college and all that. All right, Jordan, what are you smoking on? What's your high note to wrap us out today?
So I took the dog on a walk last night, as one does, and I try to make it intentional time to not use my phone. At all. I don't look at. I want to be aware of my surroundings. My dog is more reactive than the average dog, so I want to make sure the environment is always in control of the environment. So I mindfully try not to use my phone at all, but that means I'm doing a lot of thinking. And me being an idea guy, I like to come up with like, oh, that's a good idea for a script, or oh, that's a good idea for a segment or a commercial or blah blah blah. And so I open up the voice memos app. And I just say, hey, start a new voice memo. And that got me thinking about all of the embarrassing, cringeworthy voice memo notes I have in my phone that I've never once listened back to. And I just want to ask you guys and the listening audience, how much money would it take for you to just make public your voice memo list?
Oh.
Okay, I'll answer this one first. More money than exists out there because I went through a period of time where I was like, I want to be a music producer. And anytime I got like a cool jingle in my head or something, I would record myself humming that or whatever. And to have all of that just like posted, nah, son.
Yeah, I was going to say not enough money that anyone, or no one wants to give me that much money. I'll say that much because too many fragments of thoughts.
Yeah.
It's always like you think you're being profound, you think you're having a good idea, and then 24 hours later, you're like, what the fuck? What?
Yep. The first version of our podcast was audio only, recorded in our office, and our original ads that we did were me in my car with a blanket over my head, recording on my phone in the voice memo app. So you'd hear a lot of versions of today's episode of Northern Lights is brought to you by Today's episode of Northern Lights. And so yeah, no, thank you. What about you, Jordan? What's your
price?
Dollar amount?
I think most of it is a lot of. Okay, so hear me out. It's like I try to make it seem like I'm talking to somebody sitting next to me, but really I'm just streaming consciousness.
Which is a smart way to pitch yourself. To yourself.
I think it works. It works for me because then I'm not trying to like be something else, or I'm just like, hey, okay, I have this idea. What do you think? Yeah. And so it's it's a lot of music like and like a lot of like, all right, beer dabbler idea for an advertisement. Like, and they're all bad. It's all bad. So I would say it's a lot of money. It's multiple thousands of dollars for me to open up that list.
You're gonna make me go home and listen through these, dude.
Dude,
Just be embarrassed.
You should smoke first.
Yeah. To our viewing audience, our listening audience, what is your dollar amount? What would it take for you to post your voice memos, let's say on your Facebook page, for all of your family to hear?
Let's add notes for those who don't use voice memos.
Yeah.
What does it take?
Yeah.
To let us in.
Yeah.
What's your best, goofiest, most outlandish, most whatever idea?
Yeah.
Post it in the comments, please.
Well, that's all we got for today, guys.
You made me think of a note I took a few years ago where I looked back at it this year and I was like, what the fuck do I mean? You can stop recording.
Yeah, that's going to be for the Patreon subscribers. So thank you guys so much. You will be back in your feed next week. In the meantime, find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Reddit, YouTube. And once again, if you're listening on Election Day, go make your voice heard. You can check the show notes for where to find your ballot. Go and vote. You have until 8 p.m. on Election Day. Yeah. Make sure you get your voice heard.
And here in Minnesota, we have same-day registration. Just bring a couple pieces of mail. Bring a friend. Like, it's not...
Yeah.
There's no reason to not do it.
Go and vote. Make your voice heard. Vote in favor of cannabis this election season or however you choose to make your voice heard. But truly, thank you guys so much for listening. As always, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back in your feed next week. But for now, that's all we got. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Back to you soon. Northern Lights is a Minnesota Cannabis College production. This episode was produced by me, Tanner Barris, and by Steve Eigenman and Jordan Witt. Production assistance from Marcus Harkis, Shayna Payton, and John Barty. Video and audio recording at the Dabbler Depot studio by Jordan Witt. The information provided in this podcast does not, and is not intended to, constitute legal advice, but is instead for general information purposes only. No listener should act solely on the basis of information provided without first seeking advice from their own legal counsel. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Minnesota Cannabis College. Please listen responsibly.